And tonight is very special because I've got a lot of good things to tell you, and we've got a lot of things we need to ask for prayer for, and so it's going to be, I hope I can provide you with some information and some exciting news at the same time. Bud and I are in a Bible study together. We meet on Tuesday mornings. In fact, when I was elected mayor, Jim Sinoff said, John, he was kind of in charge of my campaign, and he said, I want you to come by my office every Monday morning, and we're going to pray for that week. And that's how it started. And then Jim kind of noticed me fading a little bit, so he said, okay, you come to the Bible, because it was getting where there was a lot of work involved, and he said, you come to Bible study. Well, I enjoy our Tuesday morning Bible study. We have I think, a pretty unique group, don't we, Bud? And I'm really amazed at the knowledge that some of these laymen have of the Bible and everything. And also, I think Bud goes to the prison too, don't you? Yeah. And very proud of that, I'm sure. But anyway, you know, I was thinking when Gayle was talking, back when I was a kid, I was an only child, and my mama saw to it, and they went to church a lot. They were in church Wednesdays. They were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night. If there was an all week long revival, they were in church every time, and my mama saw to it that I was in church every time she was. And I can remember, I said, boy, if I ever get out of this house, I'm gonna go to church when I please, you know. But it's amazing that seed was set, and to this day, Sunday mornings is so special to me. In fact, sometimes my wife, she's a lot stronger Christian than I am, but sometimes I have to encourage her a little bit because she's a little late getting out of bed. But I look forward to my Sunday school class, and I look forward to church. Isn't Robert Hastings, doesn't he come out here some? Occasionally, I think he was out here the last time. But anyway, we talk about prayer, and you know, I pray for the city, and we pray sometimes in Bible study. We pray for certain things. But Robert Hastings contacted me back before Christmas, and we were studying Sodom and Gomorrah, and trying to find 50 good men, 10 good men, and everything. And Robert says, you know, I was thinking about this. He was teaching that Sunday, and he said, I was thinking about this, and he said, you know what we need to do? We need to find 10 good men in the city of Valdosta that will pray for the city on a continuous basis. And I said, I'm telling you what, Robert, we need that more than anything. So, and I'm telling you, there's a lot more than 10 good men in Valdosta. I narrowed that list down to 10 so the group wouldn't get out of hand. And we started the 1st of January. And the first day, well, this year it's going to be on next Monday. The 1st of every month, that group gets together and does nothing but pray for the city and what's going on in the city. And I'm telling you, I'm already believing that some things have happened because of that. One thing I do, and as long as I'm mayor, we'll continue to do that every meeting we have, whether it's a work session, whatever it is, we start with prayer. And a lot of cities can't say that. A lot of cities don't have prayer, you know, and some of them are experiencing a lot of problems, I think, you know, due to that. They need the Lord's help. But anyway, the last 4 years have been trying times for me because I'm a hard worker. I go to the office every day, even though the job of mayor was presented to me as part-time. Well, that's certainly not the case. I haven't asked for any more than part-time money, but I'm telling you this, the job of mayor is not part-time. Starting last Monday, we had a big thing that was going to happen last week, and we started having meetings on real estate with different groups and lawyers and this, that, and other, and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, and then finally Thursday night, you know, we announced that we were going to have this hotel come to Valdosta downtown. Friday morning I got up and went to Atlanta and had meetings every morning at 7:30. Dinner at night, didn't get to bed till 11:30. You know how that is. I mean, you're out, you're in a hotel, you go to a nice restaurant with a group of people to eat, and everybody's sitting around talking, and I'm used to going to bed at 8:30 when I'm at home, and that doesn't happen when you're off like that. I drove home Monday. My wife was in Athens because her brother was having some surgery. I drove home Monday. I got home about 4:15, and I went, got the mail, and the next thing I knew, the mail was all over the floor, and I was asleep in my chair and worn out. So I went to bed, and Bud didn't make it to Bible study either, he said, but I didn't make it to Bible study Tuesday morning because I just couldn't get up. I was worn out. And it's like that just about every week now because there's so many things that are going on, and I'm one of these that tries to do, people expect of me. You know, they don't want a councilman sometimes coming to one of their grand openings. They want the mayor there. And so it's important, and I feel like if they expect me, I need to be there. Now, I can't make everything. That, you know, I have to have some help. But I try to do as much as I can. So I get worn out a lot. And that's the reason I've already said I'm going to serve these next 4 years, and I'm going to call it quits. Some younger person's going to have to come in and take over and hopefully do the job. Hopefully we'll have things in such good shape he won't have to do that, or she maybe. You never know, you know. But anyway, just to talk about a few things. As I said, the last 4 years have been trying because we've worked hard. We've worked real hard to bring industry, to do the things that people expect, you know, to bring jobs to Valdosta. And it just hadn't happened. I mean, honestly, you know, and of course we were still in somewhat of a recovery period. And the people that were expanding and opening up in this country were mostly European companies. So the first thing they told the project manager that was going to help them find a location, well, we want to be within 60 miles of the Atlanta airport. Well, that eliminated Valdosta, you know. The other thing is, and one of the things that you had up here is education. And education is so important. And we don't know how many businesses we lost because people might have looked Valdosta up on the computer and they looked everything up and they saw the graduation rate was 65% at Valdosta High School. I think it's a little better than that now. And they just wipe you off the list. There's so many of those things that are important. So we've gone suffering and we've been abused a lot. You know, there's a lot of people. And when I was elected mayor, I didn't have any agenda. I didn't go in saying I was going to reform the police department, or I didn't like the way they were arresting people, or I wasn't going to change the some of the ordinances, although I've seen that some of them needed changing, and we have done that. We've been revising and reviewing, and still are doing that. But I came in with the idea that I was going to be fair to as many people as I could be, and I was going to study, and I was going to see both sides of the story, and I wasn't going to look at it in tunnel vision. And you know, we have a lot of people that think their particular opinion is the only one that matters. So you get a lot of criticism, and quite honestly, some of it is you know, it's not easy to take. When I was running for re-election, you know, there was a lot of things said that I took personally, you know, because I didn't think Valdosta was in as bad a shape as it was laid out to be. But then I got to thinking, well, that's politics, so we have to put up with it. But anyway, here's what's going on now. All of a sudden, and I can't explain what's happened. It might be that prayer that happened the 1st of January, but all of a sudden, you know, we've announced that there's a huge industry locating in Valdosta, 200 jobs, 100 million capital investment. We've announced that, but we can't say anything about it. and it's bothering me. And this is one of the things that I want us to pray about tonight, because we have a letter of intent from these people. But they've asked us not to say anything for 3 weeks because they're in the midst of signing contracts with some of their customers. And as I understand, one of their customers was in one of the other cities that they were looking at. So they don't want anybody to know where they're going right now. But the thing that worries me is the longer we put that off, the more chance there is for something to happen. And we can't afford for anything to happen. That's going to be a tremendous, it's high-paying jobs. It's engineers and people like that. It's going to be, $15 an hour for the lower paid jobs and on up for the higher paid. It's not going to be minimum wage jobs. The other thing is, last Thursday night, we announced, and we had these people approach us. And what happens is you have these people that are professionals in locating somebody that they work for somebody that wants them to locate a place for them to expand to. So this particular individual, he was friends of Larry Hanson, and he knew a lot of people in Valdosta, and he works for a developer out of Las Vegas that builds hotels and any kind. He's built $4 billion jobs. He's built $70 million stadiums and all of this. And so he came to us and said, this guy wants to build 5 hotels in Georgia in medium-sized communities. And so he brought him to us. We met him. He is a minority and very impressive, very impressive. And he told us, he said, in fact, Jimmy mentioned to me earlier, he told us that one of the reasons he was going to go ahead and start in Valdosta first was because of the positive attitude that the leadership had in Valdosta. Well, I appreciated that because I'm not a negative person. I'm positive in a lot of ways. And so we announced that last Thursday night. That's a $12 million investment in downtown Valdosta. Plus, since we're selling him our parking lot and the area where our customer service is, he's going to relocate our customer service department. He's going to buy the land across the street, which is a slum. It's not, it's an old garage and some car wash and stuff like that. And so he's going to buy that and move our customer service department over there. So he's got to pay $250,000 for that parking lot, and then he's going to have to pay $250,000 for that land across the street. So he's going to have $500,000 invested before he ever starts. And we've got experts in the legal field that have drawn up these agreements, which make sure the city is protected in every way. Well, all of a sudden, we have been bombarded with criticism by these small thinking people that say Valdosta is a downtown hotel is not going to make it. It's going to end up being a slum. It's going to end up, all these government subsidies are going to be involved. Well, nothing's ever been said about government subsidies. And even one person said we were only getting $250,000 for a parking lot that was valued at $1.5 million. Well, if you remember, the paper said we were getting $250,000 for a parking lot that was 1.5 acres, not, and so you have these kind of people that just, I finally got it up to here, and I said I'm gonna start answering some of these emails and try to teach, try to enlighten these people a little bit, but I don't think you can. Because there again, they think that their opinion is the only one that matters, and they're smarter than everybody else. And I'm not a smart person, so I have to rely on people that are a lot smarter than me, and I'll tell you about this in a minute, to teach me a few things. And I'm willing to learn. That's one good thing about it. I've found that some people around here aren't willing to learn. But that's the next thing. Okay, we got a $12 million hotel. They're also going to build us, to replace the parking, they're going to build us a parking deck. This is going to be a Wyndham Garden hotel with a rooftop restaurant, and it's going to overlook Valdosta. It's going to be beautiful. Since that was announced, we've got 2 businesses in downtown Valdosta already that says, well, this is so good, I'm going to spend $1 million over here renovating my place, and another one that's going to renovate a building downtown for $4 million that's now a dilapidated building. So we've got 2 more projects that are fixing to start any day. One of the other projects over on Patterson Street, if you remember, right there next to King's Grill, we've had a building that's been vacant. That person that owned it's been using it as a warehouse, more or less. It's got the roof leaks and it's got rodents running loose in it and everything else. And that building has now been purchased, and we signed an agreement for a low interest revolving loan yesterday for $500,000. This person's going to renovate that building. So that's going on. Plus, Valdosta's just, do any of you ever go downtown to eat?
We do.
Okay. I have people all the time said, man, I wish we could get a restaurant like Jonah's. Who was it from Thomasville? I wish we could get a restaurant like Jonah's over in Thomasville. And my answer is, well, when was the last time you went downtown to eat? Oh, I never go down there. You know, I said, well, listen, we got one of the top 10 restaurants in Georgia down there, Steel Magnolias, as Georgia Trend has chosen it there. And we've got numerous restaurants that are unbelievable. You know, I mean, if you want something really good, go to King's Grill on Friday and get the fried grouper. It's unbelievable. What? I know, I do too. But I was there today, so I won't be able to go back tomorrow. But anyway, all right, that's a few things. All right, bring you to one. And so I get back from Atlanta, wore out, and Tuesday at 12 o'clock I had to start a meeting that lasted until about 9:30 Tuesday night. We entertained a prospect that wants to put something here in Valdosta that would be unbelievable. But it requires the cooperation of a lot of people, one of them being the hospital, which is, you know, and we got to pray for these people. We got to pray that the hospital gets rid of these negative attitudes they've got out there. We've got to pray that somebody gives them a positive attitude. And I'm going to do my best to do that, and I might lose my cool to do it, because this is something that if Valdosta was to get these 3 or 4 or 5 projects all at once, I mean, this town would be a boom town. It would raise the median household income. It would raise the tax digest. It would raise the educational level, because this is a school, quite honestly. And I mean, there's just so many things like that are going on. Now, get back to why is it happening in Valdosta? You know, prayer. But there are some other things. I mean, Valdosta is a great community. I mean, if you hear Moody personnel all the time say, you know, Valdosta is the most unbelievable place I've ever been to. The way y'all accept us and the way that you treat the military personnel out there. And I believe in Moody. I mean, when I moved here in 1952, I know I don't look that old, but I was 8 years old in 1952, 9 years old. And we had military personnel living next door to us, and some of those people became lifelong friends of my mother and daddy. You know, when they moved away, they stayed in contact. And so Valdosta's always been an accepting place. And you see that because you see so many past wing commanders that have now retired in Valdosta and stay here. We've got close to 20 retired wing commanders that have retired in Valdosta and are staying here. And some of them are saying, when I retire, right now, when I retire, I'll come back. Valdosta State University is a gem. And so between Valdosta State and Moody Air Force Base, there's about $900 million in economic impact to the city of Valdosta. So we've got, and this is something that I think you'll find interesting. You know what the population of Valdosta is?
55,000.
Well, the population of the city at night, right now, is 56,500. You know what the population is during the day?
110.
88,000, 88.5. So Valdosta's a big place. And we've been, some other things that are happening, we're fixing to get a bunch of money from DOT. There's 3 projects that are fixing to take place just as soon as all the red tape's taken care of. One of them will be Jerry Jones, which is the biggest traffic problem we have in Valdosta. 20-something thousand cars a day go down Jerry Jones, and that intersection at the church there, Crossroads at Country Club and Eagle Road, that intersection right there is horrible. Now, especially now that Crossroads has put in a school at 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock, you know, I mean, it's terrible. 24,000 cars a day on North Valdosta Road. So, so the Department of Transportation has agreed to move these projects up. We've been screaming bloody murder. And during my campaign for re-election, I made some snide comments one night at a Republican meeting where about how we had been mistreated and how we'd been overlooked by the DOT. Well, you know, there's more people in Atlanta that read the Valdosta Times than there are in Valdosta. So the next morning I got a call from the DOT, because now we have, you know, Tim Golden, our ex-senator, is now a board member. When Jay Shaw died, they appointed Tim Golden to the board, Department of Transportation Board. So he's working with us and helping us. We're also going to get a solution to 5 Points. And some of you are going to wonder about this, but the only solution to 5 Points is a roundabout.
That makes sense.
And I mean, there's all those streets coming in there. You can't have the street lights won't take care of it. There's no way. You know, somebody's going to get caught in there. So you're going to have a huge roundabout there, and it's not going to be small. It'll be a 2-lane roundabout that you can enter and leave, and if you get caught, you just keep going round and round. And so, but people in Europe handle those things, so surely we can do that.
One of the biggest ones in the world is in France.
The other project they're going to help us with is the East Park Avenue Lakeland Highway. You know, we now have 4 schools. We have W.G. Dunn, J.L. Newbern, the charter school, Centilla, and now we'll have Valdosta High School out there. So that's going to be a major problem, and they're going to do some turn lanes and help us with that. So that's another thing. Valdosta is, and the greatest thing that's happened lately that affects all of y'all that are property owners is the Valdosta Fire Department receiving a class 1 ISO rating last week. That's a big deal with your insurance. It'll reduce your property insurance significantly, your premiums. Yes, sir.
What's going to happen to the old Valdosta High School, or what's planned for it when the new one is finished?
Well, they don't really know yet. They're thinking that there's probably going to be a need for another middle school.
With the population of children growing?
Yeah, and so they're thinking that it's probably going to be converted into another junior high school, you know, because right now you only have Valdosta Middle School.
It's very central, so
and so that'll happen there. That's what they're thinking, but no concrete plans have been made for that. And I'm not privy to all the Board of Education's decisions, thank goodness. But let me think, what else is happening?
What about the gang activity you talked about?
Yeah.
One time when you were with
It's
me?
done nothing but get worse.
You said there were 8 gangs.
You know, you saw the shooting in the paper last week, a guy right behind where I live on Cherokee. It was a drug-related thing. Walked up to the front door, the guy came to the door and he shot him right there. And the gangs are bad, and the drugs are getting worse. Now, let me tell you about a couple of drugs that you need to be aware of. And any grandchildren or children that you have any influence over, you need to make sure they know this. There's two new drugs. They're called Molly and Flakka. I don't know have any of you heard of them?
Yeah.
Well, they are terrible. They're worse than anything we've seen so far. Both of them make people do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. They make people superhuman. And they also make their body temperature rise to the point where if they're out in public, they just start stripping off their clothes and will end up naked out in public. Now, the problem is both of these drugs are being introduced to our children through candy, gummy bears, Jolly Ranchers. So if anybody, you tell your grandchildren, your children, if anybody walks up to them with an open bag of candy like that and offers them something, do not take it, because that's what happens. Once they take that first piece of candy, they're hooked, and the next thing you know, they're looking for somebody to find some more gummy. They're looking for that person to find some more gummy bears or whatever, and then he's introducing them to a dealer. And the first ones are free. The next ones cost money. Just a, you know.
They have ministers in the city. They have like.
Yeah, actually.
Informed about this?
Yes, and actually, I've been to a couple of churches where they have had information meetings, especially in the black community, because that's where it's more prevalent. I'm not sure the white churches are doing the job that they need to do.
Because I haven't heard a thing about it.
Yeah. I've mentioned it.
Kids program there.
I've mentioned it several times in our church and everything, but it needs to be. The word needs to be spread. I do know that Pastor David Adams, he's a black minister. He's really working hard to spread the word on that. I've been to two of his little information meetings that they had on Saturdays, and had adults come in to teach them about that.
How's it going with the county? You know, times there's been stress and tension.
Yeah, there has, and there's some things right now that some egos are getting in the way, and that brings up another subject. This year, you know, we are required by state law, cities and county governments, which there's 159 of us in the state of Georgia, are required to negotiate services and consolidate services to the best extent we can. And 10 years ago, that comes up again this year. And 10 years ago, when the city and the county, I mean, they almost had gunfights, you know, about it, because there were so many. Everybody wanted control of the recreation department. That's how the Parks and Recreation Authority got started, because nobody could agree on who was going to do what in recreation. So they had to make an authority and appoint a bunch of, hire a bunch of people to run that, and so the city and the county both furnish the authority money. I'm a consolidation proponent. I believe that we owe it to the taxpayers to consolidate as many services as we can. Let me give you an example. Water and sewer. Right now, there's been 2 cases recently where it's cost the taxpayers a significant amount of money because the city was not allowed to run water to a couple of places. The Lowndes Middle School down there on Copeland Road, their septic tanks have failed. Their water is brown. It's awful. And so they actually sent the city a letter and asked us, because we had a water line running down Madison Highway out by the airport, and they asked us if we could extend water to them. And we had an estimate done. It was $400,000 for us to extend water down there, and that's all we were going to do, is service that school. And it probably wouldn't have been a money-making project for us, but they were going to pay for that line to be run down there. The county balked on it. and because they were afraid that if we ran a line down there, there's a couple of subdivisions that we would extend that line on into those subdivisions. We said, we got all the business we need for our water plant right now. We're actually selling the county some water, and we're not going out looking for more business. So their closest water line was over there on the other side of Interstate 75. So they're going to run a water line all the way down there below the airport and all back through the swamps and everything, back up to and a sewer line, back up to Lowndes Middle School at the price of $2.5 million. So one of my arguments this year is going to be that we consolidate, or we have some type of agreement on water and sewer that we can both live with and the taxpayers can benefit from it, because that's the main thing. We need to consolidate our zoning departments. We actually have a consolidated permit and inspection department, and our director of that, Mike Martin, just retired. So we have got the job of finding another director for that. Well, that gives us an opportunity to do something. Last year we outsourced, which I'm a big believer in. If you got somebody that's a specialist in certain things and can do them a lot cheaper than you can, then you're better off to hire him. We outsourced our computer IT department. We were spending $1.5 million a year in our IT department, and we've cut that cost in half by outsourcing it. And not only that, they brought in and gave us all new computers, which we needed too. So it saved us a lot more money, because they realized that they would have problems with some of the old equipment we had. So they furnished, they brought in 80 brand new computers to us, and so that saved us a bunch of money. But the permit inspection department has been they've been criticized a lot and everything, and it's a money-losing proposition. Even though it's considered an enterprise fund, it loses more money than any department we have, percentage-wise. And so what we're doing right now, we've got a company coming in, I believe it's next week, that's going to make a presentation to us. And of course, the city and the county have to agree on this, because this already consolidated. It's one of the few that's left. And so we will look at this company, and there's cities in Georgia right now. There's one particular city in Atlanta. They have 3 employees. Everything they got a mayor, a city manager, and a clerk. Everybody else is outsourced. They write a check to those companies and they handle everything else. So we're possibly going to look at that. If that doesn't work, we'll have to look down the road and try to decide what we're going to do. But anyway, I'm getting to where I'm rambling now, so let's think about some things, and that we need to pray for unity between the city and the county. We need to pray for these projects, that they all materialize, and we need to pray for relations between the city, county, and the hospital. We need to pray for all of the commissioners, the county commission chairman, the city council people, and myself. All of us need your prayers. We need to pray for just the fact that this city has got so much to offer, and we don't want to see it go backward. I mean, honestly, we can't allow ourselves to go backward. And what happens if the wrong things happen, then people start leaving and everything, and it just then it creates more taxes for everybody else. Your population dwindles, and you got all these services, and next thing you know, you can't pay for them. So what do? You raise taxes. We need sales tax revenue, and well, we'll talk about that. The last few years, our revenue has dwindled because you remember several years ago the state, Georgia, passed a thing where they did away with sales tax on energy. You remember that? Do you know that Valdosta has the second largest user of energy in the state? The second, ERCO Worldwide out there is Georgia Power's second largest customer in the state of Georgia. So that knocked a lot of money out of the city of Valdosta. The other thing is the TAVT tax, the automobile tax, where you used to pay every year, you know, you'd pay a little bit to get your tag, a couple $100, and then it'd dwindle down to $100 or whatever. Well, you know, they did away with that. Now, when you buy a car, you pay 7% tax on that, and the state said, oh, y'all don't worry about it, we'll make you whole. But we're still losing money on that. And they reduced it another $8 million this year for the county, for Lowndes County. So we're having problems with that. The other thing is the gate card. Anybody know what a gate card is? Are any of you farmers? Well, the gate card is the Georgia Agricultural Tax Exempt card. And so if you're a farmer, the supplies that you buy, you don't have to pay tax on. However, there are people that are abusing that. If you got 2 rows of corn and a row of pole beans in your backyard, there's a lot of people that are getting those cards. And then also the stores aren't checking them. I was involved in Atlanta the WSB TV did a little test, and they asked different people, and they had heard that I'd had some complaints about that card, so they asked me, I was going to be in Atlanta anyway, to come do an interview on TV, and they had sent 2 people out. First of all, they had told a girl in their office to apply for a gate card. Well, the closest thing she had to any agriculture was down in Florida somewhere. She had a relative that lived on a farm down there, and she received in 24 hours a gate card. And they went shopping with it, didn't pay any. They went to Home Depot, Lowe's, different places, never paid a dime of sales tax. So that tells you right there that your revenue is dwindling. The other thing is the internet sales tax. As you know, internet's getting bigger every year. My kids used it this year for every Christmas gift they bought. You know, they live outside of Valdosta, Wilmington, North Carolina, and Athens and Atlanta, and their kids are all small, so they just ordered everything over the internet and sent it to our house. Well, very little of that you buy from eBay and all of these online places, the state that you're in does not get the sales tax back in so many cases. You might pay sales tax on it, but it might be the place you paid sales tax to somebody in Texas or California or whatever. That state keeps the sales tax.
That's
So
true wherever they're located, is what you're saying.
and our dadgum senators and representatives think that if they change that, it's going to be a tax increase, and it's not a tax increase, it's a tax fairness. And somewhere along the line, and they're beginning to come around, but we fight it just this past weekend when I was in Atlanta at Mayor's Day, we talked about this to a couple of our representatives that don't support it right now. David Perdue and Johnny Isaacson are 2 that don't support that. They can't see the light in front of them for some reason. Anyway, any questions? I've kind of rambled around about a lot of stuff. I'll be glad to answer.
We've always tried to check on how we should be praying for you personally.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that brings up something else.
Okay.
February the 29th, I'm going to have my other knee replaced. So, so what we need to pray for is that I'm not down more than 2 weeks, because I've allowed 2 weeks for that, and I got to get back up at the end of 2 weeks. So that's what it took me the last time.
Okay.
So everything else, though, is fine.
Okay.
Got a few.
I know sometimes we pray just for you for dealing with the county and
Yeah.
some of that stress and some
Oh,
of
yeah.
that
Yeah.
tension. So
Yeah.
Okay.
That's every day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because you gotta have physical therapy after the operation.
Yes.
You have to have a physical.
Yeah, that lasted 9 weeks. The time before it lasted 9 weeks. I was in rehab. You know, I was going every morning, and they had this little girl that was about that tall that hurt me so bad. I mean, she'd grab my leg and bend that knee and bend it and bend it and bend it.
you know, like before a guy like Solomon coming in and saying, what do you want? Give us your kind of thing for the city. It sounds like getting the situation maybe with the hospital and that working is one of those big.
That's big.
Big deal.
There's no telling what the impact of that would be. If it's, that would be big. The other thing is making sure that the 200 jobs that's been announced is a sure thing, that nothing happens to that while we're waiting on the announcement. House Bill 489, the negotiation of consolidation of services with the county. That'll start. You'll start hearing about that pretty soon. That's a big item. What else did I mean, the hotel, we feel, you know, that's a sure thing.
And then the gang situation.
Gang situation is something that we can't forget about.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
When would the hotel be finished?
Well, they're wanting to start as quick as they can. He's already got his franchise agreement with Wyndham, and so he's working on getting things started immediately.
John, where exactly is that location? I'm not sure
Well,
I've got that fixed in my mind.
Art, you know the parking lot. You know, City Hall faces. It actually faces Central Avenue.
Yeah.
You know that picture you saw up there. That was Central Avenue. The other side faces Lee Street.
Yes.
All right. Central Avenue and Hill Avenue.
Okay.
And that parking lot between the two streets, right across the street from Harry B. Anderson's Western Auto,
Exactly.
across the
It's gonna be
street,
right there.
yeah, and in front of, do what?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, their old law offices are our customer service department, and that'll be removed and be replaced.
Well, aren't your water people right there?
That's where they collect the water
Are they
bill.
gonna move?
Well, this company's also buying, we already have an agreement with Roger Budd for that piece of land right on Lee Street, right there across from the parking lot.
To move them.
And so he's gonna build us a new customer service department over there. Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that's amazing.
Last time you were here, you spent some time talking about the reputation of Valdosta and the problems we were having, especially with Kendrick Johnson's case.
Yeah, yeah.
Give us an update on that.
Well, I'll tell you this, our reputation with the state has improved tremendously. It has. I mean, we're recognized, you know, I've been asked to be on the board of directors of GMA and some things like that. So, and I'm easy to get along with. So those people up there, you know, it's improved. The governor knows who we are and a lot of things like that. That Kendrick Johnson case is another thing. It's in the Justice Department hands. It's been taken out of the local hands. It's been taken out of the state hands, and it's been taken over by Washington. So we don't know when it'll ever end. And now the money is beginning to dry up from what I understand. And you see that by two of their lawyers, the Johnson's lawyers have already separated themselves from the case. And so I feel like that's going to end up being the solution to it. They can't find anything on anybody. They've spent hours upon hours down here. The Fed, I mean, these people have been bombarded with, what do you call them? Depositions. With depositions and everything. They can't find enough to make a case against anybody. The only thing they could possibly do, and that's what worries me a little bit, is when this thing finally comes to a halt and comes to an end, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't satisfied however it happens, and that's something we need to be aware of, because there's still a lot of people in our community that think that there's a cover up there, and they're going to think that if it ever happens and they're saying, look, we've exhausted all possibilities, we can't find anything on anybody, we feel like that the original findings were accurate, there's going to be a lot of people that get up in arms about that. Yeah. So we've got to pray that that doesn't happen.
Just the traffic solution? Is
The
what you're talking about?
traffic solution out there. Now, 5 points is another matter. and that's going to come back up the next splosh we have. See, we're actually finishing up our water main, our force main situation, and our wastewater treatment. $56 million we've spent on that, and we're finishing. That'll be finished in May of this year, and we're going to have a grand opening of a sewer plant. So if any of you want to come, but anyway, you know, that's about to be finished. So in 2019, when we have another splosh come around, then we'll put that Performing Arts Center for 5 Points back on there, if we still have 5 Points. Now, we get an offer pretty regularly on that from developers on that property, and one of these days somebody's going to come along with the right amount of money if we're not careful, and we'd sell that and they'd develop it. We've got a chain looking at that property right now and thinking about it, but we hadn't heard from them lately, so I don't know what they're doing. But
So the city owns that?
yes. And now let me tell you this: a lot of people think it was a bad deal for the city. You know, we actually have been getting more in rent from Speedy Lube and Brian Sumner down there on the front, and Big Lots, for the last few years than the city ever collected in taxes. So it hadn't been a bad deal for the city. And of course we own, you know, the city only owns that part of it. Those people in Jacksonville still own that row of stores where Farmers Furniture and everything is. So that's not part of the deal. It's only
The city has the pick and save,
the old Pick and Save and pennies and all that, yeah. But we've been collecting way more in rent than we ever got in taxes. So it's been a lucrative deal for us to just let it sit there. Now, if Big Lots, which they pay a fair amount, if they were ever decide to leave, then we'd have to really do something in a hurry. But you know, we have an agreement with the hospital that they will buy Mathis Auditorium. In fact, they talk to us all the time. They need it for parking. They need Mathis just bulldozed down and have parking out there. And the hospital will pay us the appraised value of Mathis Auditorium the day we vacate it. And we have a signed agreement to that.
Won't they give you some leverage on the problem?
Well, we thought about that. We thought about that. In fact, Larry and I talked about that today. We said, well, you know, maybe we ought to just put that school over. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
Making a deal.
that's right. That's
Are you
right.
able to say any more about what that facility would be? You said it was a school.
I really can't say any more than that. I probably said too much about that already.
Well, a lot of people, they want to see Mathis remodeled because it's in the center of town, and the older people, they don't want a driveway out there to go to places.
Well, the problem with Mathis is it was built in 1955, and it would cost so much, and it's not adequate either today. The stage is not adequate. You know, it wasn't built for the things that we want to have in Valdosta, that we need to, you know, the stage, the dressing rooms, it floods. You know, you work out there, you know, every time it rains, the basement floods. Yeah, and so we've had problems with that. And it just needs to be.
Well, we have the Performing Arts Center at Valdosta High School, which is wonderful.
That's true. That's true. Mm-hmm.
Or is the school sort of hard to deal with as far as rent?
No, it's used a lot, but there
They
again,
have loads of parking.
yeah.
And it's all one level.
There again, you don't know what they're going to do with all that. So, you know, that's
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go and invest until you
right.
the school.
Yeah.
Let's do this, guys, because are you okay for us to gather around and pray for you?
Yeah. I need a glass of water.
Okay.
Could I get a?
So let's do this. I'm going to unhook your mic here, Joe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Is the BSU going to continue to expand down Patterson and Oak?
And those people that, you know, bought all that block of land right south of the college there, they're still planning on doing that project.
What project is this, man?
McAllister Development, you know, came in several years ago and bought the whole block between Brookwood Place, Toon Street, Oak Street, and what's the other street? Mary?
Mary, yeah.
Mary. They bought that whole block. And so they were gonna build a 400 bed apartment type complex there with some retail space on the bottom and everything. Well, along about that time, Valdosta started declining in enrollment, and so they're sitting back waiting to see what's going to happen. We know for a fact this coming fall that Valdosta's enrollment is going to begin to come back, because with the waiver of tuition for North Florida and everything, they've already gotten a tremendous number of applications.
What's this waiver of tuition? Oh, people in North Florida?
So you used to have out-of-state tuition. In
Right.
other words, if Florida came into Georgia, they paid double tuition or whatever.
Right.
If we go to Alabama or something like that, we pay more tuition than a local resident does. So they've waived out-of-state. Georgia's the only state that's done that. Only for Alabama, Florida, and South Carolina.
Okay, guys, did it help?
Wonderful.
Okay. What we're going to do, we've done this before, is John will put a chair out kind of in the middle there. We'll let people get around you. And so the areas, again, that we want to make sure everybody's focused on, right? You remember what they were? February 29th is his knee surgery, so I want that's leap year. So we had to pray he's able to leap up fast from that and get restored, right? That's right. Walking through with the county, right? The county that's an issue. Two governmental competing at times should be cooperating, getting that together. The letter of intent, getting that through on that 3-week issue. The gang issue, we heard a little bit on that, but that kind of opens that part up. And then this possibility that has a connection, relationship with the hospital and how that goes. It's going to be critical in there as well, right? So I just want to say before we go into the thing, one of the things I appreciate about John, every time I meet him and I talk to him, is he's clearly a servant. I never detect ego in him, and I've got such a thing when I run into that, I just back off. And with John, instead, I just want to support him, because I feel like, okay, here's a man truly is being a servant of God and a servant of the people. And so I just want us to make sure that we are upholding him. I really appreciate him coming out here to talk to us. And it feels important that we kind of recalibrates us, doesn't it, in terms of how we're part of the whole. I mean, I want to be in on some of those meetings with him to help him out, you know. I mean, that's just kind of how my heart goes. And I love the fact, as this place prospers, I want to encourage you too. A lot of you have been about some very intensive warfare over the land, right? About getting things cleaned up. We know we won't go into that site and some of the things we've done to try to make sure. You need to understand some of the good things that are coming out. There's all this works together, right? If my people will do these things, then I will heal the land. And you all have been after this in prayer for over 2 years. So we haven't gone into the details with John about what we've done, because he doesn't necessarily need to know. But I just want to encourage you, take heart at some of the things he's talking about that are breaking open. Okay, there's things that you all have been sowing into in prayer that I think are part of what's coming back out as fruit. Okay, so just use that to stir yourself up to keep pressing on and praying.